I asked Dwayne how he was doing, and he said, well, asymptomatic, and I'm the same.
Well, he's happy because I'm in D.C. self-isolating. He doesn't have to deal with me every morning. He's in California. Byron, let me ask you, first of all, any personal stories? Anyone in your family sick?
No, we're very fortunate on that score right now.
You and me both. I have yet to find anyone who's been personally touched by the virus, but we will. Eventually, we will all know somebody, and I hope everyone's story has a happy ending. I think we're still ahead of the curve here. What do you've got a very good perspective. Do you think, Dr. Fauci always says, as soon as you think you're ahead of the curve, you're really behind it. I know that. Where do you think we are on the curve of response?
Well, it's hard to know because there is this lag. And you think, well, did I do something irresponsible 8 days ago, and will that show up? So there is this lag we don't know. It seems to me that large parts of America are taking this quite seriously. And as far as the Trump administration is concerned, I still think he did the single best thing that could have been done in this whole thing, which was when he stopped restricted travel from China on January 31, and also the single worst thing, which is not taking the testing issue seriously enough and getting ahead and using his presidential powers to push people to do things. And that really is the president's powers, to just push the bureaucracy to get things done.
I think you've correctly identified that. I want to add, there's a lot of misinformation about the closing of the National Security Council's, epidemic pandemic section. And Robert O'Brien's a very dear friend of mine. I follow this. They didn't close anything. They consolidated, and one of the veterans of the office said, we didn't do that. But the media keeps repeating it, Byron. It's one of the reasons why this is not the media's finest hour, because a lot of them cannot disengage from their TDS.
On this national security thing, council thing, you're absolutely right. There's two issues with it. One is whether Trump actually did it, and as I'm sure you've talked about many times, the National Security Council had just grown and grown and grown and like quadrupled in size over the years. It was bloated. It was too big. And so there was a reason that John Bolton, then the National Security Advisor, wanted to bring it down in size because it was getting beyond what it's supposed to do, simply, which is to coordinate between the various agencies of the government. So this was one of the offices that they put into that they took away its standalone office and put its functions into another office. And so we just had a piece yesterday by Tim Morrison, who was at the National Security Council. People may remember him testifying in the whole Ukraine investigation because he was actually on the Trump-Zelensky call and did not hear anything that he thought was wrong, unlike Lieutenant Colonel Vindman. But anyway, he wrote a piece and say, look, Trump and Bolton reorganized the NSC because it was too darn big, and the function of this office was placed in another office. It doesn't mean it was dissolved. That's one thing. But then the other thing is the idea that a few more staffers or a standalone office with letterhead in the National Security Council would have somehow affected the global spread of this disease is, let's just say, not really serious.
Byron, I watched Steve Holland yesterday, who's a pros pro from Reuters, and his questions were all designed to elicit information that would help the public. Many people's questions are designed to hurt the president. And that's actually where my greatest grievance with the media is. Just stow that away. I'll come back to it. But I want to ask you a question that was posed to me by a former senior state legislator and member of congressional staff. I'll just call him Senator Gregg. If we ever get an honest look at why the CDC wouldn't take the WHO COVID-19 test, we will find regulatory capture. Some pharma-type company had convinced them to use their test instead and then couldn't deliver. Do you believe? I don't know what happened in the test. You're right. That's the president's wheelhouse. He needs to push that through. Maybe he did as fast as any president could have, given what CDC told him. But do you know the facts of that, Byron?
I don't. And you've really you pointed your finger at something that's extremely important in this. From what I have read about it, it has all the marks of bureaucratic inaction. of bureaucratic sclerosis. And if it came because of regulatory capture, that is the regulators being too close to the industries they regulate, then it would be entirely characteristic of what happens in Washington too much. That's actually what I did mean earlier when I say the president's power is to push people to do things and to reach down and just kick some asses in the bureaucracy at wherever they need to be kicked. And that's what didn't happen for a while in some of the critical early stages of this.
Now, I speak Trump. I jokingly say I speak Trump. And I heard him yesterday. I've listened to him. And I think what he was saying, and I base this on the two great popular histories, the Ghost Map, which is about the 1854 cholera epidemic in London, and the Great Influenza about the 1918 and 1920 pandemic. I heard the president say the structure we had to break down wasn't built for this. What I heard him actually trying to say is, if he was Hugh Hewitt and a talk show host, friends, everything we've done before, Ebola, H1N1, nothing like this. This is unique in that no one gave us warning, and it is more infectious and not as easily identifiable as Ebola or H1N1. And therefore, I get a 10 out of 10 because I'm doing as well as anyone could have ever done given these unique circumstances. Fair translation, Byron?
That is, I think, the best possible way to say what the president was saying. And I do think a lot of times when he says something like, well, it could last till July or August, he was not talking about the restrictions he was putting out. He was talking about the presence of the disease in our society. On the other hand, sometimes it's hard to figure out his intention. I remember, there was a time, and it was with you, the candidate Trump called President Obama the founder of ISIS.
Yes.
And you said something to the effect, well, Mr. Trump, of course what you mean is that by withdrawing so rapidly from Iraq, President Obama created conditions that led to the growth of ISIS. And Trump said, no, I mean he's the founder of ISIS.
Yes, he doubled down. It became a viral moment. But that's why I speak Trump. Yeah. And if you don't speak Trump, or you do speak Trump and you refuse to translate, I think you're doing a disservice to America at this point.
What he was doing was he had a point he wanted to make in that whole ISIS stuff.
Yes.
And he was not going to let you nuance it for him.
Exactly. You speak Trump. You speak Trump. But I think everybody speaks Trump in D.C. They just refuse to translate.
I agree. Listen, I think, and this is completely apart from the coronavirus stuff, I think we have seen years of many people in the media willfully misunderstanding what the president says and putting the worst possible gloss on what he says when it is entirely possible to put a far more benign gloss on whatever.
And let me be a little bit more sinister. I saw a credentialed media person from a big, I'm not going to shame them, maybe they regret it. They took half a quote from the governor's transcript where the president was urging them to buy direct if they could because point of purchase might be quicker. And they edited it to make it sound like he was indifferent to their need. It was purposefully misrepresenting the president during a crisis. It's actually ethically shocking.
It was they were making it out to be like a Trump you're on your own moment. And we saw that when Trump was complaining earlier on about Democrats using the coronavirus as another political weapon against him, which he tied to the impeachment as the last political weapon that they used against him. And there was a lot of reporting that the president said coronavirus itself was a hoax. Finally, actually got several Pinocchios in the Washington Post fact checking. Actually,
but you know what Mark Twain said: a lie is halfway around the world before it's faster than the virus. A lie before truth gets its boots on. In the end, I very quickly, Byron, do you think everything to this point is sort of irrelevant? That yesterday was a different moment and a different chapter begun?
Oh, absolutely. It could be that we are on the line, on the path to flattening this curve, which is what everybody's wanting to do.
Byron York, keep coming back. Follow him on Twitter, America, at Byron York. I'll be right back on the Hugh Hewitt Show. Anthony Fauci coming up, bottom of the hour.